Next on Northwest News today, a murder mystery for police. Why they want to know if a neighborhood feud turned fatal. Then a family trip ends in tragedy. A grim reminder about the danger around the water. And remembering fallen soldiers. Service members step up to honor their brothers and sisters in arms. Thanks for joining us this Monday. I'm Stephen Kilbreath. Your news starts now.
This is NWCN. Northwest News and weather 24 hours a day. Now, Northwest News today.
And we begin with a developing story in the murder of a Renton, Washington teenager. We're getting word that police have arrested 19-year-old Jared Lane in Oklahoma City. KFOR says Lane was on foot along the freeway. He was a person of interest in the stabbing death of his ex-girlfriend, 17-year-old Jessica Scholl. To Western Washington, where police discovered two dead men in a Pierce County neighborhood. The Pierce County Sheriff's Office says they found the victims in South Hill. They tell us the two men appear to be in their 20s and 30s. South now to Mason County, where police are investigating a double murder mystery. Someone called Shelton police to a home early this morning saying they heard gunfire. Officers found a man and woman shot dead inside. After a standoff with the house next door, police detained a man and woman, calling them persons of interest. But they're still out looking for another man. There's speculation this may have all started as a fight between neighbors.
Whether his involvement or participation in this is criminal, I don't know at this point, but we believe he has some information at minimum.
It's too close to home. I've heard of this stuff happening over there in Seattle and stuff, but never here in Shelton. It's too small of a town.
Authorities say they found a number of children and young adults in the home they raided. They all got out before police shot tear gas inside. No one was hurt. Seattle police are trying to crack down on gun violence after at least 6 shootings this weekend. The first hurt an innocent bystander Saturday at Seattle Center. He's now out of the hospital. The second happened early Sunday morning during a home invasion. The homeowner remains in critical condition. Then, bullets from 4 drive-by shootings peppered 4 homes in South Seattle. Several shots nearly hit a 16-year-old girl in her bedroom. Seattle police say they don't see a connection between all of the shootings. A water rescue in Oregon has turned into a recovery mission. Authorities say a grandfather, a dad, and a teenage son were fishing in a small boat on the Columbia River near Fairview this morning when the boat sank. Nearby boaters rescued the 2 men, but not the teenager.
At about 10:20 this morning, we started getting reports that there was a boat overturned in the water and that there were potential victims in the water.
The Vancouver Fire Department says the anchor line got tangled, causing the boat to capsize. Officials say they don't think anyone could have survived the cold and fast-moving water for several hours. We're told the teen was not wearing a life jacket. This comes after a number of other rescues, 4 different ones in just 2 days. 2 happened in Western Washington and 2 more along the Oregon coast. In all, 4 incidents, authorities rescued everyone safely. This is video you're seeing now of one of the rescues near the mouth of the Columbia River. You can see a helicopter crew lowering a pump to a stranded fishing vessel that was taking on water. The boat's crew then pumped out the water and patched the leak. The Coast Guard then towed them back to shore. We're hearing the desperate 911 call from a survivor of a small plane crash in the mountains of Owyhee County, Idaho. A California fireman, his wife, and adult daughter were headed to Mountain Home Saturday night. Their Cessna crashed south of Silver City. They managed to call 911 from a cell phone despite having some serious injuries.
I need to know how many people are on that plane.
So I get a little closer.
Say again? How many people are on the plane?
3 over City Road.
You have 3 people.
Until we get some more info.
What are, I have head injuries and back injuries. Do we have any other injuries?
Not that we know of. That's the best I could assess, ma'am. I'm
okay.
To get up and walk around, but my head is split open pretty good.
Okay.
A National Guard chopper airlifted the family to safety. Rescuers took them to Boise's St. Alphonsus Hospital in serious condition. A relative says all 3 are now doing well. Good Samaritans rescued a driver from a fiery crash. It happened early this morning at Martin Luther King Jr. Way in Seattle. Police say a car rear-ended another, burst into flames. The driver of the car that caught fire took off. Police are still looking for that person. The driver of the rear-ended vehicle suffered minor injuries. To Oregon now, where a man is in custody following a 6-hour standoff in Salem. 19-year-old Jeremy Dunham was wanted for threatening someone with a weapon. During the standoff, police say Dunham tried to distract them by calling 911 about a lost child. Police didn't buy it, and a canine found Dunham hiding in the home early yesterday. He faces a judge tomorrow on charges of menacing, police interference, and drug possession. The Department of Defense announced today the death of a Stryker soldier based out of Washington. Army Specialist 21-year-old Vilmer Hernandez of Joint Base Lewis McChord died this weekend in Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. The military says enemy forces attacked his unit with an IED. The body of the Salinas, California native was returned to the U.S. yesterday. And another tragic reminder of the meaning of Memorial Day. We've learned about an Oregon Marine who died in Afghanistan last week. Keaton Coffey was from Boring, Oregon. He was killed leading a combat patrol in the Helmand province. Friends say the 22-year-old was eager to return home in just a few weeks because he was going to get married. A solemn Memorial Day tradition today at Arlington National Cemetery. President Obama laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. He also paid tribute to the servicemen and women who made the ultimate sacrifice.
From the jungles of Vietnam to the mountains of Afghanistan, they stepped forward and answered the call. They fought for a home they might never return to. They fought for buddies they would never forget. And while their stories may be separated by hundreds of years and thousands of miles, they rest here, together, side by side, row by row, because each of them loved this country.
The president also said for the first time in 9 years, Americans are not fighting and dying in Iraq, and the war in Afghanistan is winding down. People in Portland marked the day by gathering at the Willamette National Cemetery. You can see small flags placed at grave sites as well as flowers. The ceremony included a flyover by military jets and a 21-gun salute. Bill Schonley was the keynote speaker. He worked as the voice of the Portland Trailblazers and proudly served in the Marine Corps. He talked about this country's real heroes.
We gather not as Republicans or Democrats or conservatives or liberals or sports fans, but we unite today simply as Americans to remember the priceless contributions made by the best darn kids in the world.
Today was the 62nd annual Memorial Day observance at the cemetery. Today also marked the 2-year anniversary of the Eastern Washington State Veterans Cemetery. Since the opening dedication ceremony, more than 1,000 inland Northwest vets have been buried there. Now the cemetery is applying for grants to get more space, so more veterans will have a final resting place.
Now we have a good idea of how fast things are filling, and so we'll be adding 2 more columbarium walls within the next 2 years just to be able to make sure that we don't delay anybody who needs to be placed here.
A ceremony today featured a Black Hawk helicopter and plenty of local military members. Coming up, if they can weather this, they can weather anything. We'll show you the unwelcome wedding crasher that stormed this couple's big day. And hiring our nation's heroes, why one company says veterans make some of the best employees. Drivers returning from their holiday trip can expect some delays. This is a look at I-5 right near the Tacoma Dome in Washington. Traffic didn't look too bad earlier, but the DOT warns of heavy traffic on I-5 north from Olympia through to Tacoma. Other potential problem areas include westbound Highway 2 from Leavenworth to Stevens Pass and Interstate 90 westbound until about 8 o'clock. The Memorial Day holiday is one of the biggest car buying weekends of the year, and automakers are rolling out the discounts. Some dealerships offer as much as $2,000 in cash to buy a new car. Zero financing is also available on some models, all in a push to get new customers on the lot.
We're moving into that time where there's vehicles on the ground. We're moving into the next model year, so the factories incentivize this weekend for customers.
A recent survey by True Car showed on average women pay more for cars than men. The dealer we talked to says he thinks that's because women tend to pay more for options to help protect their car. The Department of Veteran Affairs reports America's newest veterans are the most medically and mentally disabled than any other generation. Of the 1 million most recent veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan, a staggering 45% are seeking disability benefits. That's more than double the rate of veterans who sought disability following the Gulf War in the early 90s. And the last thing servicemen and women need to worry about after they come home is finding a job. And this Memorial Day weekend, Christine Romans looks at one company with a mission to hire veterans.
For Dave DeVonzo to find a job, all it took was a sign.
I'd been driving past that modern sign probably for, before I moved out here 12 years ago, for probably about, 18 years before that.
This billboard off I-95 outside of Philadelphia. Construction equipment company Modern Group wants to hire people just like him, veterans. He retired from the Navy in August after 29 years.
It was a bit of a shock, I think, for me. I put all the applications out, all the work I had done, put my feelers out there, and got little response, very little response. So I saw the sign out front, and I called the HR department, sent them my stuff, and the rest is history.
And that's what led him to a job as a shop technician here.
I will tell you this, my first ever job interview, and I'm 47 years old right now, happened at Modern Group. So it was a change, definitely a change.
Dozens of applications poured in to Dave Griffith, Modern's president and CEO.
You can imagine the visibility that sign gets.
He's hired 27 veterans and reservists from all branches of the military.
They tend to be more disciplined, more focused, more sensitive to the customer. I think there's a great attention to detail for folks coming out of the military.
He's shown me quite a few things around here.
Yeah, we got to help each other out.
Yeah.
We're all on the same team, and inevitably our mission is to get the entire job done and, keep this company rolling.
There's a huge push to hire more veterans. The unemployment rate for post-9/11 veterans has been steadily improving, 9.2% in April, but it's still higher than the national average. Some 40 major U.S. companies have pledged more than 100,000 jobs to veterans by 2020, including Time Warner, the parent company of CNN. Already this year, 12,000 plus vets have been hired. The fields that have been hiring veterans: government, healthcare, tech, and manufacturing.
I feel very strongly as a CEO that our obligation is to honor that service. If we can do that in such a way that we can hire these young men and women and bring them on board and also do good for our company and our stakeholders, I can't imagine why I wouldn't do that.
What we deal with in the military is nothing more than really a snapshot of society anyway. So coming here, working with these guys here, it's just, I think it's a perfect transition.
Still ahead, meet some of the old guard assigned to make sure every Arlington grave gets a flag. In recognition of Memorial Day today, flags fly in front of every gravesite at Arlington National Cemetery. It's a tradition going on 40 years, known as Flags In. As Sue Turner reports, it's a huge honor for the soldiers who get to place those flags.
Rows and rows of headstones are now decorated with rows and rows of American flags.
It's a great honor just to be out here to honor our fallen comrades.
Members of the 3rd U.S. Infantry come to the cemetery before Memorial Day to make sure each of the more than 260,000 grave sites gets a flag.
At least every year, every one of these veterans are touched and shown that they are remembered.
The 3rd Infantry, also known as the Old Guard, was designated as the Army's official ceremonial unit in 1948. Every available soldier in the 3rd U.S. Infantry participates, and each flag is put exactly 1 foot in front and centered before each grave marker.
To me, it's to pay honor and respect to our brothers that have served, and most importantly, to show that you never forget.
It takes 3 hours for all the flags to be placed properly. Another 13,500 flags are placed at the Soldiers and Airmen Cemetery.
And it serves as a reminder that freedom isn't free.
Old Guard soldiers remain in the cemetery throughout the weekend to make sure the flags stay at each gravesite. American flags are also placed at the graves of each of the 4 unknown servicemen at the Tomb of the Unknowns. In Washington, Sue Turner, Northwest Cable News.
What an amazing sight there in Arlington. All flags are removed after Memorial Day before the cemetery is opened back up to the public. You're watching NWCN. For more news and weather coverage, you can log on to our website at nwcn.com. We'll be back in just 2 minutes.